Alright, what's going on everyone? Today we're going to be upgrading the Savage Scavengers starter deck on a budget. We will not be spending a single rare. So if you want to upgrade these, go to your starter decks, select the deck. You cannot edit this, but you can clone it. It's going to copy the deck into your My Decks. I have 4 of these because I've been upgrading them. Ignore that. But we can now edit this version of the deck. But yeah, this is a Golgari graveyard-based deck. It is the same theme as last year's deck. Could also just play a lot of the same cards, honestly. It's basically just an updated version. Yeah, we just care about getting stuff in the graveyard. We have ways to mill. This mills, this surveils, this mills, and then we don't really have a ton of payoffs. This gets cheaper, I guess. This is cool, but not super great. But we can fix that. We can fix this. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to click here, or if you are in this layout, you're going to click here, and we're going to switch it over to standard. So standard is a little bit easier to win with a starter deck because the decks are less powerful. So we need to get these alchemy cards out. So we'll take this out. No big deal. We'll put a 4th copy of Blanchwood Prowler. So this is a 2-mana 1/1, mills 3, and we get to put a land from among them into our hand. And if we don't find a land, we get a +1/+1 counter. So that's great. And this is also going to serve another role, which is it's going to be sacrifice fodder, which will make sense in just a little bit. Next, we're going to take out 2 diminished returner. The benefit of this is it keeps coming back from the graveyard. That's fine. We have a standard option here, which is called Conscript, which does the same thing, sort of. So 1-mana 2/1, enters tapped, and you can play it from your graveyard if a non-skeleton died, which will actually be able to force the issue. We'll talk about the sacrifice stuff in just a little bit. Actually, we're going to talk about it right now, because we're going to take out Sauron, which is a very cool card, just an alchemy card. And we're going to replace it with Sky Fisher Spider. It's kind of unassuming, but it's one of the better cards in our deck. It's a 4-mana 3/3 reach, not a very good start, but when it enters, we can sacrifice another creature to destroy target non-land permanent. This thing destroys anything. It can destroy enchantments, it can destroy planeswalkers, it can destroy creatures, it can destroy artifacts. If you see something you don't like, this thing can kill it. And sacrificing something sounds bad, but not for us, because we have this, which is sacrifice fodder. Once we get our land, we have this, which just comes back. If it's in the graveyard, we can sacrifice this to kill something, and then just get this back, so it's like a trade. So we can very easily just not care about the drawback of sacrificing something, at which point this becomes 4 mana, blow up anything, and also get a 3/3 with reach. And when it dies, we can choose to exile it to gain 1 life for each creature card in our graveyard. So it's so much more powerful than you would think. Playing this deck, it's like, I look forward to drawing it. Like, I draw this, I'm like, yes, one of the best cards in the deck. And I just would never have thought that reading the text. So yeah, it's pretty good. Next, we have Shadow of the Enemy. It's very powerful, very cool. It's an alchemy card, so we don't care. We're going to replace it with Writhing Necromass. So this is very similar to Tolarian Terror in the blue tempo decks, or the Is It tempo decks, or the Arcane Aggression deck. If you saw that upgrade guide, it's a 7-mana 5/5, but it costs 1 less for each creature in our graveyard. Now do keep in mind that not only are we like sacrificing things, but we're milling as well. This mills, this surveils, so we can fill our graveyard pretty quick, at which point this can very easily be a 1-mana 5/5 that touches. It's usually like 1, 2, maybe a 3-mana 5/5. Still pretty good. So next we have this Burrowing Razor Maw. It's a little bit clunky. It's 3 mana, 4/2. It mills 4 cards, which is awesome, but only when it dies. So what I want to do is replace it with an Eerie Soul Tender. So this is also 3 mana. It's a little bit smaller. It's only a 3/1 instead of a 4/2. But the benefit here is it mills when it enters, so we can control that, right? We don't have to, try to get our thing to die. And then also, when it's in the graveyard, we can pay 5 for it, exile it to return another target creature from our graveyard to our hand. So remember, we're milling, right? So we can sometimes mill good stuff like Glissa, like Skyfish Spider, like Writhing Necromass. We can mill these things into our graveyard, and the benefit of this is we can pay 5 and get them back into our hand, which is pretty good. So we'll take these out and put these in. By the way, I didn't mention, sometimes we mill over this, and it has utility in our graveyard, right? Like if we play this, and we mill over an Eerie Soul Tender, well, now we have a 5-mana bring something back from the graveyard spell that we milled over for free, right? So that's pretty cool. Next, we have another sacrifice fodder thing, because Ravenous Gigamole is a little clunky. It's 4 mana, 2/3, mills 3, and we can put a creature card, but it has to be something we mill. We can't just pick anything. So if we mill over something good, that's awesome, but if not, if we just mill over, one of these things, it's like, it's whatever. And if we don't mill anything, it's still just a 4 mana 3/4, so it doesn't feel super great regardless. The milling to get a creature is very luck-based, so I just don't really like it. We're going to take it out, and we're going to replace it with a fantastic sacrifice thingy, which is Undead Butler. It's 2 mana 1/2, it mills 3, but the benefit of this is when it dies, we can exile it to return a creature card from our graveyard to our hand. So that returns anything, and we have much more control over when it dies. We can sacrifice it, we can block with it, whatever. It's just very useful. It's very easy to trigger, and we can just get anything back. So that's very nice. So we're going to put those in. And, it's the type of card that just feels totally fine. Like, playing this, blowing up something, and then sacrificing this, and then exiling it to get, like, another one back from the graveyard, or a Glissa or something, just feels really good. Alright, so next, I want to just replace this. I don't know why it's in the deck. 3 mana, only destroys a creature with power 3 or less. That's, like, an expensive removal spell that only kills small things. Not great. So, I'm going to take 1 out. For 1, Go for the Throat. Go for the Throat is one of the most premium removal spells in Standard. 2 mana, destroys non-artifacts. There are some artifacts in Standard, but not a ton. There's like Phyrexian Soulgorger gets played, but that's not fun to target regardless, so it's just better. Then we're going to take 1 out. For 1, Overwhelming Remorse. I'm shocked how much I've enjoyed this card. I was expecting it to be good, but it's 5 mana. It exiles, so that's sometimes relevant. A creature or a planeswalker, so it can hit planeswalkers as well, and it costs 1 less for each creature card in your graveyard, so it very frequently costs like 1 or 2. So yeah, that's just great. And the final Vanquish the Weak, we're going to replace with the best card in our deck, which is Skyfisher Spider, which is still a removal spell. It's just a 4 mana removal spell that can destroy anything, not just creatures that cost 3 or less, or that had mana value 3 or less, or whatever it was, power 3 or less. It's gone, and I don't even care. It's wiped from my memory, because Skyfisher Spider is fantastic. Next, we have these Phyrexian Gargantuas. Now, I want to take these out, but we're not losing card advantage from the deck, because bear in mind, we added this, which is card advantage. It's a creature that gets another creature. We added this, which can trade and then bring something back. This has a lot of, utility with, blowing something up, then getting this back and stuff. So we've added a lot of card advantage to the deck. So I'm okay with cutting this for 2 more Writhing Necromasses because, like a 2 mana 5/5 is usually pretty good. And that's usually what this is. I also think it's worth cutting 1 Wary Thespian, which is the worst card in the deck, I think, for another Undead Butler, just because I think this card is so good. And next, I actually want to adjust the basics. I want to take out 1 Forest for 1 Swamp, though I will say, if you wanted to, you could take out a Forest and add an Gnawing Vermin, which is a 1 mana, mills 2, then when it dies, it gives something -1/-1. It's not exceptional, but it's not bad either, because we do have 25 lands. It's a little bit high, but we also have a lot of like 4-drops, so I kind of want to have a lot of lands in this one, but it's probably fine to do that. So that's our deck. Notably missing are things that you might actually have because they were in the other deck, like Old Stick Fingers. This was in, I want this over here. This was in the last Golgari deck, and it fits right in because it's the same theme. Urborg Lurgoyf is also fantastic. We can't pay the blue kicker. That's fine. It's still great. There's also Old Rustine, which is right here. This was also, I believe, in the other deck. And even Tyvar is pretty good. So all of these cards, Urborg Lurgoyf has power and toughness equal to the number of creature cards in our graveyard. Technically, it has toughness +1, and it can mill 3 if we pay an extra black when we cast it. Old Rustine will mill every turn, a card every turn, and then depending on what we mill, we get some advantage. Creature cards give us a 1/1, lands give us a treasure, non-creatures give us a blood token. Tyvar can -2 to mill 3 cards, then return a creature with mana value 2 or less from our graveyard to the battlefield. That's to the battlefield, and that gets all of these creatures down here. And then Old Stick Fingers also has power and toughness equal to the number of creatures in our graveyard, but it also mills. So if we pay like 4 for it, he mills, and he doesn't stop milling until he hits a creature. So if we pay 4, we mill until we hit 2 creatures. So in the late game, it's pretty crazy. The worst cards in the deck are probably Wary Thespian, Terror of Tawashi, which isn't bad, but it's not great. And I suppose Eerie Soul Tender, which we technically added. And I would also say Deathbloom Ritualist. It's only good if we're playing Old Stick Fingers. That's like the big payoff, is these two together. But if you don't add this, then this feels kind of medium. But all of these cards, we have 2 Weary Thespians, 2 Eerie Soul Tenders, 1 Terror. That's 5 cards, and they would be much better as Old Stick Fingers or Urborg Lurgoyfs. Like, I would happily trade 2 Thespians for 2 Lurgoyfs and 2 Soul Tenders for 2 Old Stick Fingers and be absolutely fine with that. Also, Glissa Sunseeker technically doesn't have a lot of synergy in this deck. It's so powerful that I'm fine with it. But technically, she's not really doing much, right? At least in terms of what our deck is trying to do. Just realized I did that whole rare thing without changing the screen, so it's whatever. Anyway, that's our deck. That's, I would say, a pretty significant improvement. It's going to mill better. It's going to have better payoffs. The synergies with these little junk creatures that mill and then get sacrificed to this thing, all of it feels pretty good. This is going to win a lot of games just because it's huge and it's usually very cheap. So yeah, that's the deck. Let me know how it goes. If you try it, there will be a link in the description to the complete deck list. Hopefully that's helpful. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.